This is the Mocha for What.com.
The Mocha for What.com.
Mocha for What.com. This is the Mocha for What.com weekly podcast. Week 4, Damon. I mean, it's been real interesting. We had some real interesting results last week. Foremost, Damon, what are your thoughts on how everything's going through the first 3 weeks?
So, as you mentioned, we're about a third way through the season. We've already had several surprises. A couple of things have gone the way that we thought they were. There's still a lot of intrigue and questions to be answered and played out throughout the rest of the season. Mm-hmm. So I'm extremely excited to see what the next 7 weeks will bring. I mean, we got 4 undefeated teams left in the county right now. Mm-hmm. Most of them that we expected. I think there's one surprise who we'll talk about later on in the show that remains among the undefeated teams. Mm-hmm. But other than that, like I mentioned, I'm extremely excited for what the rest of the season has to bring us.
We're going to take a little step back and really talk about the game of the week from last week, which was Blair coming up with a monstrous win versus Northwest. Northwest coming off a very inspired performance versus Seneca Valley. And a lot of people thought that Northwest was just going to follow the same script that they've been following the last few years. I'm looking at QO as the last real challenge to them. But Blair, I mean, Damon, I haven't really seen a team, in that kind of position play that well. And honestly, I was very just impressed with how Blair was very resilient during that game. I mean, they went down a couple times, and a lot of other teams could have quit, but behind their leader, Desmond Colby, I mean, Desmond Colby is one of those kids that I believe you can stack him up with, just about anybody in this area when it comes on to passing the ball. You give him time, and that was the key, in my opinion, Damon, of that game. I was there watching it, and I mean, he had a lot of time in the pocket. Didn't really have too many times where he would have to, elude tacklers just to make the pass. And I think that was the key. You give that kid time, he's just as good as anybody. And another kid that is just as good as anybody is Cliff Carter. Cliff Carter got open time and time again in big moments. It kind of reminded me how J.D. Guerrero, week back, really just was one of those kids that didn't let his team quit. And, really was that go-to guy for Desmond Colby. You talk about Eric Zakuri. He was a guy that he's proving himself to be, along with Travis Levy, one of the best, dual threat running backs. And what I mean by that is a guy that can catch out the backfield and also run between the tackles when need be. He had a long screen pass for a touchdown. He also had a play up the seams that was really big for Blair. And I think that Blair came in and really had the game plan. I think they saw something on film to attack them through the air and really attack the outsides of the Northwest defense. And they got some favorable matchups with some of their good athletes, and I think that boded well for them in the end. And Northwest, I mean, as far as them, I think that they definitely, I don't think there's any reason to panic if I'm them. They have 2 of the best running backs in the area, in my opinion, in Juwan Ferrari and of course Khalil Owens. And they were able to run the ball versus Blair, but Blair came up with key stops. If I'm them, I just kind of take the loss, go back to the drawing board, find a way to get more from their passing game. They have to find a way to get more from Chris Craddock. I mean, obviously, He's a first-year starter. He's just getting his feet underneath him. But if they want to go where they want to go, he has to be a kid that is going to play, big for them. Because with those two kids and the kids, a kid like Coach Tripko up front, listen, Northwest is going to be able to run the ball versus just about anybody. They got that kind of talent in the backfield and up front. I think that the defense definitely, now while there were some plays that the defensive backfield made, I think the defensive backfield definitely had a tough time with Blair. Now, I don't think that that's anything to really be ashamed of necessarily, because in my opinion, Blair has the best wide receiver core in the county. But at the same time, you don't really expect that from Northwest defense, especially ones with D1 athletes in the defensive backfield. So all in all, I think this was more about Blair being really, really good than Northwest being bad. I don't think, that this was a signal that Northwest is going to go away anytime soon. I just think that there's some things they need to work on. Luckily, they're in the side of the playoffs where, they can afford maybe one, maybe two losses and things like that. This was a must win for Blair, really, because they're looking at still facing a Sherwood team, facing a Paint Branch team, and then now the big one versus Damascus. So it's going to be interesting for Blair going forward. But I was really impressed with Blair, and honestly, I tipped my cap to those kids. They played one hell of a game. What do you think about this game, Damon? What were some of the things that you took away from it?
So, as you mentioned, this was our game of the week last week, and it lived up to everybody's expectations, with the Blair Blazers coming away with the victory on the road against Northwest Jaguars. This was a shootout. There's no way to sugarcoat it. Defense was not the order of the day for this game, which is fine. I love a high-scoring game just as much as everybody.
Right.
And these two squads delivered. I mean, it was back and forth all game long. There was a point in the second half where it looked like Northwest had somewhat figured out what was going on and was able to put together back-to-back scores to go up by double digits, but Blair kept clawing their way back. As he mentioned, they were led by our number one rated preseason quarterback in the county, Desmond Colby, who finished the day with 5 touchdown passes and over 400 yards passing, which earned him Player of the Week honors in multiple publications.
Right.
But as the old cliche goes, it was a team effort. You already mentioned Clifford Carty, Eric Zakuri, Ponce de Leon, who might have the best name in the county this season.
Right.
Don't get that. Read your history books. It was an overall team effort, and it was a pleasure to watch. On the flip side, for Northwest, even though they came out on the losing end, once again, Khalil Owens and Jawan Farr had outstanding games in their own right, and almost carried their team to victory, but just came up short. Now, with all that being said, by no means does this mean that the season is over for the Northwest Jaguars.
Right.
If, for those of you with short-term memory problems, Northwest has lost in the regular season every year that they won the state championship. So I'll just let that sink in for a minute.
Right.
So there's no need to panic in Germantown. Everything's going to be okay. I guarantee you, once Game 10 of the season wraps up, Northwest will be playing in Week 11. There's no need to panic, as Coach Noob and his staff has showed for over numerous years. They're one of the best at adjusting, whether that be in game or from week to week.
Right.
Whatever the issue is, I think they'll be able to figure it out. Now, going over to Blair, I mean, this is the biggest win for that program in the modern era of Blair football. There was a time when Blair was the tops in the county, but that's in the pre-modern era, talking about way back in the 1960s and prior to that. But yeah, Blair is now a legit top dog in Montgomery County. I mean,
yeah, there's
no other way to put it. Now, with that being said, there is very little time to savor this victory.
Yeah.
Blair, they get Churchill next week. I fully expected them to win that game with no problem, but the week after that, they're on the road at Paint Branch, and despite the early season struggles for Paint Branch, they seem to have figured things out. That will not be an easy game for the Blair Blazers. And for Northwest, it picks right back up next week at Whitman. Whitman is one of the surprise teams this season with a 2-1 record, literally undefeated in Montgomery County public school competition. Only loss coming to private school Landon. So that game's really intriguing. So don't sleep on Whitman, and I'm sure Northwest isn't.
Right.
So overall, excellent game of the week. Extremely entertaining.
Right. No, absolutely. I agree with you. And I think that people that are panicking about Northwest are kind of still stuck in the mindset of what Blair used to be. And so when you see the headline, Blair beats Northwest, you're like, what's wrong with Northwest? But if you got to get out of that mindset, you got to really look at Blair for what they are right now. And what they are right now is a legit contender, just like you said, and a team that has the number one quarterback and one of, if not the best wide receiver in the county, and one of the best running backs in the county, / linebackers in the county. I mean, this is a team that's loaded with really good players. And if you understand it and you're a Northwest fan, and you also understand that you lost a kid in Mark Pierce that was one of the greatest ever, and that position still a growing process, right? I think that you guys will just shake it off and keep it moving, because, like I said again, you have two of the best running backs in the area on one team, and you got one of the best offensive lines. Just, trust me, Northwest is going to be able to ride that. Chris Crowder is going to continue to develop, and the quarterback position will continue to develop. And if I'm a Northwest fan, I'm looking at week, the week that they face QO obviously is going to be a big week, but week 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. That's really when I expect this team to really hit its stride. So. Definitely, I don't count Northwest out at all. Like you mentioned, I mean, people forget that really bad loss to Gaithersburg a few years ago when they first won the first state championship. A lot of people counted them out then, and at that time they didn't have the history that they have right now. At that time, they were still an up and coming team that didn't know how to win yet, and they ended up winning the state championship. So I'm not saying it's going to happen this year, but I'm just saying I don't have any reason to panic about Northwest at all. And I still think that they're definitely a title contender, especially with that staff. We're going to talk about this week's game of the week. And, Damon, sometimes when you look at the schedule, you try to predict which games are going to be the games of the week, which games you're going to be going to. And this week we got a bit of a surprise in that respect. We got two teams that definitely are looking to make their mark on Montgomery County. Two up-and-coming teams with a lot of good explosive players, teams that I think definitely deserve to be talked about a little bit more, and that's RM and Wootton. RM is Richard Montgomery is actually going to be going to Wootton on Friday at 7:00. This is huge for both teams. I mean, for RM, They're 3-0. They have still Northwest on the schedule, obviously, and a few more tests. If they can get past this game with a win, they are looking at being in a very good spot, not only a playoff spot, but a high seed in the playoffs. Now, when you talk about Wootton, you're talking about a team that is trying to get into the playoffs, trying to get into that hunt. This is a game that they almost must have if they want to continue that going forward. And so this is going to be a very, very tightly matched game. Both of these teams want to make a statement. Both of these teams want to be talked about how we're talking about Blair right now, and they feel like they deserve to be in that conversation. So when you look at this matchup and you look at some of the major players, of course I got to start with Ty Hebron. A kid that, first and foremost, his speed is something that scares opponents every single time he steps on the field. He was actually a track guy for Montgomery County, one of the best track guys in Montgomery County. His numbers the last few weeks, Damon, and you mentioned him a couple times, and rightfully so. His numbers have been absolutely positively eye-popping. I believe he went over 200 yards twice this year already. He had over 270 yards this past week versus Rockville. This kid is a dangerous kid anytime he gets the ball in his hands. So you definitely gotta take a look at him. Coach Klotz is definitely a guy. If you remember his work when he was at QO, he's definitely a guy that likes to keep the ball on the ground. So expect him to also use a very talented guy, Enrique Zuniga. He's another running back that RM is going to use, and he also works in kick return and in the defensive backfield. So that's another kid I'm going to be looking at that are really good athletes that definitely are going to be, threats to push the ball down the field, to make big explosive plays. So definitely Wootton, I think, is going to have to really guard against the big explosive play against RM. Now, Wootton definitely has some kids in their own right that can get downfield and create some havoc for RM. And it all starts with their new found quarterback, Grant Saylor, who has kind of exploded on the scenes and is now viewed as one of the top quarterbacks in this county. He's a kid that definitely has a lot of the tools that you look for in a quarterback. On the defensive side of the ball, Dean Spitz is a kid that we've been talking about for the last 2 years as a major piece for Wootton. I think that Wootton has definitely came up and surprised a lot of people with their play. Even in a blowout loss versus our QO, they still had some impressive moments. So the way I look at this game is, you have a lot of speed and explosiveness on both sides of the ball. You got, two hungry teams, and I can't wait to see it. How do you see this game, Damon? And what are some of the things you're going to be looking at?
So, as you mentioned, this is definitely the most intriguing matchup in Montgomery County, at least for me personally, this week. If you haven't been paying attention, this game will feature 4 of the top 10 statistical leaders in the county in the 3 major categories. You have Ty Hebron, the number 2 rushing leader. You have Grant Saylor from Wootton, as you mentioned, number 6, and Spencer Silverstein right behind him at number 7. And the overall number 1 leading receiver in the county in terms of yardage, Noah Miller from Wootton. So this should be at least in my opinion, a pretty explosive offensive game. So with that being said, overall this has huge implications for both teams. Both teams already have 1 loss on the season, so that puts them a little bit behind the 8 ball in terms of trying to catch up with the individual leaders in their region. So RM is obviously trying to to make it back to the playoffs for the second year in a row. Wootton is trying to make a strong case for themselves. They got their first loss of the season last week in a loss to Quince Orchard, so they're trying to right the ship immediately because they have serious playoff aspirations moving forward for the rest of the season. I really, really am intrigued to see how this game shakes out. It's a clash of styles. You have the Rockets with the strong running game, and you have the Patriots with the high-powered passing game. So it'll be interesting to see who imposes their will the most on each other. Just going off of the limited tape and live play that I've seen on both teams, I'm leaning toward Rich Montgomery pulling out the victory in this matchup. But they will have to. It's going to be a high-scoring game. They're really going to have to rely on their running back and Ty Hebron and Chris Ricks, who also have done a good job this season rushing the ball. If anything, I think they're going to have to keep the Wootton offense off the field.
Right.
I was able to see him live last week, and even in a blowout loss to Quince Orchard, Wootton moved the ball very well. So that's something that the secondary at Rich Montgomery, they're going to have to work very hard on this week, is keeping up with the multiple targets that Grant Saylor is able to dish the ball out to.
Right.
But this is going to be a pretty big matchup that's going to have long-lasting implications for not only these two teams involved, but for each of the teams that they have played and will play throughout the season. So a lot of eyes will be watching this game in Rockville this Friday.
Right. No, absolutely. And there's, a kid that honestly, and I mentioned a bunch of really good players before, but there's a kid that I'm probably the most excited to see, honestly, Damon, on the whole field. He hasn't really been talked about a lot, but this kid, Zaire Mitchell-Payton, okay? Now, he is a kid that I really didn't really know much about to begin the season, but just some stats for you. He's one of the leading receivers in the county, but in my opinion, just looking at his film, that's probably not even his best position. His best position is probably defensive end. The kid's 6'6", 230 pounds, and can run. So I'm kind of excited to see that. See what he is bringing to the table, because if what I'm seeing on film is what I'm going to be seeing live, then we're going to be in for I'm going to be in for a special treat, So I'm gonna lean towards RM as well. I'm gonna lean towards RM. I think that honestly, I don't know if I'm gonna go with a extremely high scoring game. I'm gonna go with RM 20. I'm gonna go with Richard Montgomery 24, Wootton 20. Yeah. So Damon, what do you think the score is gonna be for this game? Do you think that you said that you lean towards RM? Do you think that RM is gonna be a high scoring game, or do you think it's gonna be for these two teams kind of tempered down a little bit?
I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, very similar to the Northwest Blair matchup last week. Same type of styles between the two teams, and I expect it to play out in a similar fashion. I am calling for Rich Montgomery to hold on to the victory
Wow. Okay. I mean, I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind that at all. That'd be a fun game to watch. All right, everybody, we're here with one of the most underrated guys, I think, in the county, and one of the most electric players that this area has, and Ty Hebron. And Ty, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. And first and foremost, I just want to say that, you are one of the guys that we talked about at the beginning of the season as a possible candidate to have a breakout year. Right now, currently, you're second in the league in rushing. And you are coming off a game where you had over 270 yards and 2 touchdowns versus your rivals, Rockville. Where do you see your game at right now? I mean, obviously you started off hot and coming off a season where you were splitting carries with another really good running back. Where do you see yourself right now? And what do you contribute to your success early on in this season?
I think for me it was being at every single workout and being a leader, and being a senior and being voted captain, that really motivated me to want to do good and lay it all out on the field every night.
Right, absolutely. And you talk about going to every single workout during the off season and being voted a captain. Now, going into the off season, you guys came off a 9-1 season, losing to Northwest in the playoffs. What was the mindset going in? Because obviously that was the first time the RM had that kind of success in a while. What was the mindset going into the season, going to the off season? How do you think that helped you guys, get off to this 3-0 start?
Well, we know that we took one step forward, and in order to be great in the next season, we had to take another step, and that was win a playoff game. So I had to get everybody to show up and be motivated to win more games.
Right. And what were some of the things that you did to help people get motivated to come to the workouts, get in the film room and things like that?
Well, I actually encourage some people to run track. Okay. And I will actually get on a lot of guys who we know who is valuable to the team. And I know that if they're not in the weight room busting their butt every day, then it will contribute to the field and it will show.
Okay, and I actually saw on your Twitter, your profile picture is you in the hurdles. You're known for the track and field, and between the two sports, what's your real passion? Where if you were to pick one, which one would you say is your biggest passion?
My biggest passion is football. I've been playing it for longer.
Okay, and you're known for your speed. How do you think that affects the opponent when they face you guys? What are some of the things that you've seen opponents do to kind of try to take your speed away from the game anytime you face somebody?
I would see opponents like they would always call me out. They would say watch 9, and I would always take a pre-snap. I would look at the defense and see what they're about to do, and then I would just execute on my run play. Right,
absolutely. And talk about this week. Talk about, going in. You guys obviously have a big game versus Wootton is 2-1 right now. They have a really good quarterback, a really good passing game. You guys obviously want to continue the momentum. Talk about this week and the importance of this week.
Well, the importance of this week is we're both battling for playoff position, and obviously if Wootton wins, they're in a better position than us, and we beat them last year, and everybody's expecting us to come out and beat them again this year.
Right.
And we really want to be 4-0. That's the most important part. And we don't want to be complacent. We just can't come off a rival game, we're all hyped up. We have to get focused again.
Right. And how have you seen the the overall respect for RM change, not only within your community, but just out from the outside overall? How have you seen, just like, do you guys go into games now with people giving you that kind of respect, and do you think that people view you guys as an elite program right now?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, they really respect us more now, and I believe that we would be respected a lot more, and our program would take a big step if we could beat Northwest, because they're really talented. They got great coaches, and that would just be a really big game. We would like to follow in Blair's footsteps. That would be really great.
Right, and that's you led me right into my next question. Looking at what Blair has done, do you guys kind of get motivated from that? From what they have done, they're also a team that hasn't had a lot of success in their history, but now they're they're doing what they're doing. Do you guys kind of look at that and say, you know what, that's something that we can be doing too going forward, or is it more of like, hey, we're just going to kind of do our own thing and we're not going to really look at anybody else?
Well, yeah, most of that we're going to do our own thing, but like after seeing what Blair did, it just came to my head that they believed that they could win and nobody else believed in them, and they just came out and had a great week of practice, and then they showed on the field.
How much is it belief? Like, is belief more than the physical part of it, in your opinion?
Yeah, if you don't believe it and you don't come out with heart, man, you're just gonna get ran over.
Right. And how's Coach Klotz overall instilled that belief in you guys? How has he kind of gotten into the community, gotten you guys, gotten the kids to believe in the program, gotten kids to come out for the football team? I'm sure that before there were kids that were walking the hallways, didn't want to play football, but now how has he kind of just changed the tenor of kids wanting to play, people wanting to participate, fan participation, things like that in within the RM program?
Well, Coach Klotz, he's a great coach. He came a long way from the 2-2-8 season, but he never gave up. He would always be that one who would study film while he was teaching. He would always go home, say hi to the wife. He would always just be studying film just to put us in that position to win. And Coach, he's always right with what he says. If we have a bad practice, he knows that on game day we'll get smacked in the face, and sometimes that does happen, but he knows that we're strong enough to pull out a win.
Right. No, absolutely. And my last question is this: when you look at, and obviously you're one of the best running backs in the county. When you look at the running backs in the county, where do you see yourself as an elite running back? Do you kind of look at the other guys and kind of try to judge where you're at? And do you look at the stats? Do you look at the standings and things like that? And do you think that you deserve more respect when it comes on to rankings and things like that? When it comes on to who you are as a running back?
I most definitely do look at it. I try not to let it bother me, but I just realize there's a lot of great running backs out there. It just motivates me to want to do better. And when we come up and face teams like Clarksburg and Northwest, I want to have big games against them. I just don't want to come out and show up against teams that are okay. No disrespect to them, but
right.
I feel like teams like Northwest could give me a bigger challenge.
Right.
I would really like to have a great game against them, and that'll really define me as the running back that I'm trying to be this season. Right.
No, absolutely. I like that mindset. And we're definitely you've been a person that we definitely have to keep an eye on, because the numbers that you're putting up is undeniable. You're definitely, you and your team, honestly, really last year surprised us, and now you're continuing the consistent success that you guys had last year. So we really do appreciate you coming on, man, and everything that you guys are doing. Hopefully, this week can turn out good for you, and going forward.
All right, thank you, man.
No problem.
Appreciate it.
All right, everybody. We're going back to the boards. It's completely my fault why we kind of slipped up and didn't have it last week. And Damon picked me up this week and got it back up there. We got some good questions. Really appreciate the fan interaction. We're obviously the board is a really big part of MocoFootball.com, and we want to make sure that the voices on the board are heard on the podcast and integrate that into what we do. So we're gonna go through talk about some of the questions that you guys have, and just go from there. Let's go with. So we're gonna go with Amatagari, man with the Kool-Aid person as an avatar. Shout out to him for that. Do you support the idea of the top 16 teams in each classification making it into the playoffs rather than the top 4 teams from 4 divisions? Damon, this is more up your wheels. You've talked about this a couple of times on the board. How do you feel about that?
To answer this question, yes, I do support the idea of going to a straight 1 through 16 format for each of the classifications in Maryland. But I do recognize, understand, and respect the opposite argument for that. This is the easiest way to put it. For teams in and around the 95 corridor, it's very easy to basically schedule a game and get a full schedule with very minimal travel, especially in Montgomery County and PG County and Howard County and Anne Arundel County.
Right.
It gets a little bit trickier as you get away from 95, i.e. up in the Panhandle, on the Eastern Shore, in Southern Maryland, and for totally different reasons in Baltimore City.
Right.
So those regions I just mentioned are more for the current format because they feel they don't get penalized when it comes to bonus points because they maybe can't schedule a game versus multiple teams within their own classification.
Right.
Or another argument is they don't have to come up with the funds to travel as much as the teams, let's say Montgomery County, because we are literally not leaving the county to find a game in most cases.
Right.
Whereas the teams in the extremes of the state, they got to do some traveling.
Right.
And that costs money. So I understand and respect that. But if push came to shove, if I had to vote, it would be 1 through 16.
Next question we're going to get to. Yeah, this is a really good question by Football Fan 6. In the 4A, say QO, Northwest, and Blair get the top 3 spots. Who do you see as the 4th best team out of Gaithersburg, RM, Clarksburg, Wootton, Whitman? Me personally, I have to go with RM right now to get one of the 3 top, or even one of the top 2 spots. You got to remember, Northwest still has QO on the schedule, and they got Whitman this week. Sherwood still on the schedule. Blair got Sherwood, Paint Branch, and Damascus. Right, so both of those teams still got 3 really tough matchups where that's 50-50. RM really has got Gaithersburg, which is always going to be a tough game, but outside of that, they get past Wootton. They get past Wootton this week. They got Northwest, and it's Gaithersburg. They're going to be at the very least, they're going to be, number 3, So, yeah, just off of schedule alone, I go with RM, over Clarksburg, Wootton, Whitman, and Gaithersburg. And honestly, I think RM is a better team. So I think I'll go with that. What do you think, Damon? Do you think that RM is in the better spot, or do you think Gaithersburg, Clarksburg, or Wootton or Whitman?
Honestly, yeah, I agree with you 100%. Just strictly based off the schedule, Richard Montgomery is in the best situation. Even if they drop next week to Wootton, which would technically put Wootton in the driver's spot for the fourth best team in that region, Wootton still has to play Ligonor further on down the season.
Yeah.
They still have to play Northwest later on in the season.
Yeah.
So this just started getting hard for Wootton. They got some tough teams left on the schedule. Not to say Richard Montgomery doesn't, but outside of the game this week, they're with Wootton. Northwest is more than likely their biggest challenge, where they would be considered underdogs.
Right. So
I think they would be favored for the rest of the schedule. We can't say the same about Wootton. We can't say the same about Gaithersburg. We can't say the same about Clarksburg, and we can't say the same about Whitman.
Right. So
not to say any of those teams can't pull off this upset, and they might pull off one, maybe even two, but to catch Richard Montgomery, especially if they win this week, it's going to be a tough task. So yeah, Richard Montgomery is definitely, let's see it as the fourth best team in that region.
We're going to kind of combine E-Man's and in a minute's question a little bit. Both of them about Blair. E-Man, do you think Blair is a contender to make a chance? Do you think Blair is a contender to make a deep run in the playoffs? And in a minute is asking, do you think that Blair is a product of a good, talented senior class, or once those guys graduate, are they going to dramatically drop off, or are they going to immediately reload? For the first part of it, is Blair a contender to make a deep run? I think that it really all depends on if they can keep Desmond Colby upright. If they can protect Desmond Colby, then they're going to be fine, against just about anybody. But that's gonna be the question: can they hold up, game in, game out? Because the kid's passing the ball a lot. That's obviously gonna create opportunities for if you have a good pass rush to get to him. If they're able to protect Desmond Colby and continue the success that they have, making sure that they're getting the ball out of his hands, and also the way that he can, he's very accurate down the field as well. And then now with the weapons that they have, definitely. I think that they're definitely a contender to make a deep playoff run if they can do that. Now, can they do that? I don't know. Versus a QO or one of those, that's yet to be seen. But I definitely do think that they're a contender to do so. Anytime you beat Northwest, you got to be a contender to make a good playoff run. And then out to the other question: is Blair a product of a good, talented senior class, or is it one of those situations where they're actually building a real program? Honestly, time can only tell on that question. I'm going to lean towards they're building a program. Obviously, having great players help out. If you really look at it, a lot of these kids that they had weren't kids that everybody knew going into last season, going into this season. You heard about a few of the names, but it's not like they had a bunch of names that everybody knew, and I think that it was more of development rather than just them just having a bunch of talent. Blair has always had athletes. That's never been Blair's problem. It's just they weren't able to develop the athletes. And so with that being said, I definitely think that it's more of a program thing than just a flash in the pan. We have a good senior class, and we're gonna go back to 5-5 or 4-6. To answer that question, that's kind of how I feel about that. How do you feel about Blair in general, Damon, and the two questions that our posters asked?
So to answer the first question, do I think Blair is a contender for a deep run? I really need to know the definition of a deep run. By deep run, do you mean state semis, state finals?
Right,
no.
right.
If you mean win a game, yes.
Mm-hmm.
As it stands right now, obviously Blair can win a game, especially if they rematch with Northwest in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
Now, would they be favored to win in a game versus Richard Montgomery? I don't know just yet.
Right.
That remains to be determined.
Mm-hmm.
Would I favor them to match up if they matched up with Quince Orchard in the first round? I would know they would not be favored in that matchup.
Right.
As it stands right now, we're only in week 3. I have QO as the favorites to make it out of that region to play in the state semis.
Right.
So depending on your definition, I gave you 2 answers. I hope that satisfies Eamon. So, in a minute's question, is Blair building a perennial successful program? Absolutely, positively, yes. You can just look at the trajectory of the team in the past, 5 years,
mm-hmm.
and it has been nothing but up. The last 5 years. 2012, 2-8. Coach Fields takes over in 2016, 5-5. Next year, 8-3. Next year, 6-5. While record-wise, it was a step back. The on-the-field product, in my opinion, was better.
Yeah.
It was just a matter of playing a couple of tougher opponents here and there.
Yeah, you had Damascus on the schedule, so
So there's that. And obviously this year, off to a 3-0 start. So yes, I think Coach Field, his philosophy has sunk in at the school and with the kids, and they're making inroads in the community. They're making inroads with the Silver Spring Saints, who practice directly across from Blair. So, and which is traditionally a private school recruiting ground. Now Blair is a legit contender at getting some of those kids to go to Blair instead of a private or a Peyton Branch or Blake.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this is not an anomaly. I expect Blair to remain among the top 6 teams in the county for a few years to come.
Right. Yeah, I think that Blair is just, is going to be a team that we're going to have to deal with for a very, very long time. I don't think they're going to be going anywhere. Again, another week, another attempt at this pick and score thing. I don't know if we're getting any better or getting any worse, but we're going to keep on trying. First game, we got BCC going to Northwood. Damon, who you got in this one?
I have picked against Northwood every single time this season.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing it again. I got Northwood pulling off a victory. I'm going with Northwood 28-21.
Yeah, I got Northwood 17-14. We got Walter Johnson and going to Gaithersburg. Damon, 2-1 and 2 teams. Damon, who you got in this one?
Gaithersburg. Walter Johnson, congratulations on pulling out your first victory of the season last week versus Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
But I have the Trojans coming out on top in this 35-14.
Yeah, I got the Trojans coming out on top 28-21. 21-3. We got number 5 Northwest heading over to Whitman. Obviously, Whitman is going to be extra juice for this game. How do you see this game playing out, Damon?
Yeah, if Wootton and Richard Montgomery weren't matching up this week, this would definitely be my vote for game of the week. It is still an extremely juicy matchup regardless. You got Northwest coming off a devastating loss to Blair last week. Whitman got back in the win column with a victory over Einstein. Mm-hmm. But I think Northwest rights the ship this week, and they get back to the fundamentals. Even though it's not the old Northwest we knew, they're still a formidable opponent. I have the Jaguars coming out on top, 38-21.
You know what? I'm going to go with Northwest bouncing back. I'm going to have Northwest winning 31-21. You know, we got Paint Branch and Kennedy. Kennedy's looking for that first win. It looks like Paint Branch just kind of righted the ship after the early loss to Whitman. How do you see this game, Damon?
I think, as I mentioned earlier, Paint Branch is back on track. Kind of figured out what they want to do offensively and defensively this season. And unfortunately for the Cavaliers of Kennedy, their losing streak is going to continue. I have Paint Branch coming out on top, 42-6.
Yeah, I actually got Paint Branch kind of making a statement in this game to remind everybody that they're still living. And I got them winning 51-3. I think they're going to put a world of hurt on Kennedy. I think that they're going to, maybe leave the starters in a little bit longer than they would have naturally. I think that they want to kind of I think they saw what Blair did, and they see that Blair's kind of like the talk of the town right now, and they're almost like the forgotten team almost in that whole scenario when it comes on to share with Blair and Paint Branch. And I think that they're going to send a statement to the county that they're not bowing down to Blair anytime soon, and they're going to be coming, and it's going to be a game in a few weeks. I think they're going to send a message to Blair as well, the same kind of message to Blair as well. So I got them winning pretty handily. We got Poolsville and Damascus. How do you see this game, Damon?
Congratulations to the Falcons getting their first win of the season, traveling up to Carroll County and taking down Winters Mill 19-3. Unfortunately, the winning streak ends Friday when they travel to Damascus.
Yeah.
I have the Damascus Hornets coming out on top once again, 48-13.
Okay. I got Damascus winning 41-7. We got QO and Clarksburg. Obviously, QO is definitely a team that they've after the first week one loss, they've definitely looked good. Getting Fofi Bazzi back and Marvin Beander and Tyler Terry also helps out a lot. And a Clarksburg team that bounced back after a bad loss versus Sherwood, showing their resiliency. How do you see this game, Damon?
I got QO coming out on top in a scrappy fight, but the score won't reflect that in the end. The Cougars coming out on top on the road versus the Coyotes, 38-16.
Yeah, I got QO 41-24. I think that QO is gonna continue. I think Doc Bonner is a kid that his numbers might not be up at the top of the board, but he's playing just as good football as just about any other quarterback, maybe outside of Desmond Colby in this county.
Oh,
so
speaking of numbers for Doc Bonner.
Okay, here we go. Here we go. Let's step out the way. QO guy, ready to go. Here we go.
Since the numbers are on the board, just throw these out at you.
Okay.
47 attempts for 36 completions, 427 yards, 7 touchdowns, which comes out to a 202 QBR.
Whoa, time out. QBR?
Yeah, I broke out the QBR.
Okay, listen. Okay, first and foremost, where did you get the formula for the QBR?
I got my sources.
Okay, all right. This man broke out the QBR on us. Okay, well, look, this kid's definitely balling out. Like, this is undeniable.
The most efficient quarterback in the county.
Okay.
Efficient.
Okay. No denying that. I can't deny that. I mean, the kid. What was his completion percentage again? 36 out of 40.
47 for 36. That's a 76% completion percentage. 0 interception.
It's pretty damn big.
I didn't even throw in his rushing statistics. There's no need to. That's just egregious. I don't need to bring up his rushing.
That's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. That's pretty damn good. So shout out to Doc Bonner. You know, we playing some good ball over there. Keep it up.
Oh yeah.
So we got Rockville heading over to Seneca Valley. Obviously, Seneca Valley is rebounding pretty well last week after losing to Northwest the week before. How do you see this game, Damon?
Unfortunately for the Rams, that came out losing in the Battle of Rockville 28-20 to Richard Montgomery.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good to see the high-powered offense is still in place, even though they weren't able to put up as much points as they wish they would have. And it doesn't get any easier this week as they travel to Germantown to take on the Screaming Eagles, who are coming off a dominant win over the Churchill Bulldogs last week. And Seneca will continue that trend. I have them coming out on top with another dominant performance by Adrian Platt as he looks to take over or hold on to the county rushing title. Screaming Eagles 52, Rams 13.
Yeah, unfortunately, I love Rockville to death, but I think it's right around that realm. I think that Seneca Valley is going to win this game 48-0, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's going to be around where you're at, you know. I think that Seneca, just like last year, it's going to be the arms race. You know what I'm saying, Damon? You know, this is going to be the Cold War again, right? Like, you know, Damascus beat the brakes off of Watkins Mill last week. And I think, you know, Seneca Valley, they want to answer, you know, Damascus blow for blow. And while they're not competing on the field, physically on the field at this point, I definitely think they're going to be sending warning shots at each other. And I think that you're going to see Seneca Valley send Damascus little subliminal, you know, disses over there, and just to let Damascus know that there's still a legitimate threat to them, and they're going to be coming when they match up in a few weeks. We got a team that I can't figure out what's going on. Springbrook heading over to Sherwood, number 3 Sherwood. Damon, who you got in this game? This Springbrook team has been really one of the most interesting storylines, not in a good way, in the county. So who do you got in this game, Damon?
Yeah, I mean, there's not much more I can really say about the Blue Devils. They're coming off of their third loss of the season to Northwood, 13-6, and it's definitely not going to get any brighter as they travel to Sherwood this week, who beat down Magruder 56-14. I got the Warriors coming out on top again this week, 58-6.
Jeez. Damn. Whew. You know what, man? I'm gonna give Springbrook one more time to show me that they got some life. Okay. I know Coach Lil Max is trying to keep that team together. And I feel like they're gonna come out and play some inspired ball versus Sherwood and lose 41-14. I think they're gonna come out and I think the game is gonna be a little bit closer than the final score. I think they're gonna play some inspired ball, man. I think Springbrook is actually gonna, I think in the first half it might actually be a 2-score game, something like that. Springbrook does have talent, so I'm gonna give Springbrook one more shot to show me they got life. I think that this is gonna be a game where Springbrook shows some fight, but at the end, I think they're gonna win. Sherwood's gonna win, 41-14. You talked about your quarterback over there at QO, and I'm not saying that, my kid is in Doc Bonner's class yet, but Michael Maboni is playing some really good ball right now. He's a kid that definitely we need to be looking out for going down the line. Dual threat kid, and I'm really excited about Jarvis Tillman. He's a kid that few people know about, but I don't think a lot of people know about. He's put together 2 back-to-back really good games, and he's a monster on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. And look for that name to come up a little bit more as we go along. I'm gonna go with we're gonna go to Walkersville versus Blake. There's been some discussion about this game on the board. Damon, who you got in this one?
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It's a Montgomery County team versus a Frederick County team. Yeah. I don't even know why we have to discuss this. Yeah. I got Blake coming out on top, 14-13.
Yeah, I actually got a very similar score. I got Blake coming out on top, 17-10. Late touchdown wins it, in my opinion. I think Blake is going to show out well in this game and show what Montgomery County football is all about. Churchill going to Blair. Damon, who you got in this game?
Blair continue to roll on their undefeated season, 48-2. Will Churchill get a score? Yeah, they'll get a score. 42-13.
Yeah, I got Blair 52-14. Magruder at Watkins Mill.
Watkins Mill gets back on the winning track after 2 back-to-back losing games. The Wolverines coming on top at home, 38-21.
Yeah, I got my Marines bouncing back, getting back to 2-2, and really just refocusing. I mean, it's been a real emotional time for them. The last 2 games were real emotional because not only because of the off the field stuff, but I mean they were trying to pull off 2 back-to-back weeks, pull off 2 real that would have been program defining wins, similar in some fashion to what Blair did, and I think that now their sights are going to refocus back onto trying to get that high seed in the playoffs, and it starts this week. And I think that they can right the ship and go on a little run right here. So I'm gonna go with Watkins Mill, 38, Magruder, 7. We got Wootton going to Einstein. Damon, who you got in this game?
I have the Knights coming out on top of the Titans. It's going to be a close game, but Wheaton's going to pull out the victory on the road, 24-16.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for Wootton. I think that Wootton bouncing back this year, being 2-1, is a very impressive feat, especially after all the players that he lost. But I'm actually going to go with Einstein. Christian Greaves is one of my favorite players in the area. He's definitely a kid that can change the game at any moment, and I think that he is, I don't want to say single-handedly going to beat Wootton, but I think that he's going to have a really big-time breakout game versus Wootton, and let the county know that he's still in the running for one of the top spots when it comes on to any award that you're talking about. So I'm going to go with Einstein 24, and I'm going to go with Wootton 21.
I just come to let y'all know, put some respect on my name.
Put some respect. Put some respect.
Put some respect.
Put some respect.
Put some respect on his name. We're gonna pick. Me and Damon gonna pick a player each that we believe that needs to be, the county needs to be notified about a little bit. Damon, who you got this week?
So I mentioned him earlier in the podcast, but this kid definitely deserves for everybody to put some respect on his name, and that is the wide receiver for the Wootton Patriots, Noah Miller. Sophomore, people, leading the county after 3 weeks with 24 catches, 354 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Let me tell you, the Wootton Patriots, along with Grant Saylor, have something interesting brewing over there. They're going to be a team to keep a lookout for in 2017 and moving forward with the young talent that they have going on. So, congrats to Noel Miller.
No, absolutely. And I'm going to go with a kid I mentioned also earlier in the podcast, and Zaire Mitchell-Payton. I mean, I tell everybody to go watch this film. I mean, he's a big, fast kid that can run, and he's 11th in the county in receiving yards, but that's actually not his best thing. He's 6'6", 230, and he's a monster on the defensive end, on the defensive line. And if you have any chance, just take a look at his film, man. This kid looks like that prototype defensive end that college is looking for. So I expect him to possibly be garnering some college interest as well as the season goes on, if he continues to play like this. So Zaire Mitchell-Payton, I'm going to put some respect on your name. All right, well, we're at the end.